Almost all of the current cobalt supply comes from China.
Cobalt is considered a key material in the race to build the batteries that power electric vehicles.
As major financial strides are being taken to open North America's first cobalt refinery plant in North Cobalt.
This is going to be the very first critical minerals project to reach production of any sort of significance in Canada in many, many years.
While headlines focus on tariffs and trade disputes, another shift is quietly reshaping the future of North America. The United States, a country that prides itself on industrial dominance, may soon depend on Canada for one of the most important materials of the clean energy age. That material is cobalt. It is essential for electric vehicle batteries, defense technology, and advanced electronics. And almost all of it today comes from refining operations in China. This is why the announcement from Ontario matters. The province has pledged 17.5 million Canadian dollars toward the first large-scale cobalt refinery in North America. At first glance, it looks like a regional investment. In reality, it signals a strategic turn that could place Canada at the center of North America's energy transition.
The project is led by Electra Battery Materials in Temiskaming Shores, a community in northern Ontario. Once completed, it will produce about 6,500 tons of battery-grade cobalt sulfate each year. That is enough to supply materials for roughly 1 million electric vehicles annually. It will also create around 50 direct jobs in the area, with more indirect work tied to logistics and construction. The cost of building the refinery is estimated at 100 million Canadian dollars. Ontario's contribution is part of a broader financing mix. The United States Department of Defense has already provided $20 million, showing Washington's concern about reliable supply. Electra itself is restructuring to cut debt by 60% and raise $30 million in new equity. Talks with Canada's federal government are underway for an additional 20 million Canadian dollars. These are not small gestures. They are building blocks for the first critical minerals project of real scale to reach production in Canada in many years.
The economic upside is clear. At current market levels, annual revenues from 6,500 tons of cobalt sulfate could range between 160 and 230 million US. Analysts following Electra's restructuring estimate the refinery could generate around 30 million US in earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation once it is running steadily. Beyond numbers, the strategic benefits are significant. Canada moves from being a supplier of raw ore to holding a high-value position in the EV supply chain. This strengthens its credibility as a secure and transparent supplier without ties to foreign state-linked entities. For policymakers, it reinforces the logic of Bill C-5, known as the One Canadian Economy legislation, which is designed to speed up approvals for mining and energy projects. The refinery shows that Canada can actually deliver. It is a demonstration project, but one with continental reach. Canada also gains something less tangible but equally important: negotiating leverage. In past trade disputes, Ottawa has often been the side under pressure, whether on dairy quotas or lumber tariffs. With cobalt, the balance shifts. Possessing the only refinery of its kind in North America allows Canada to speak not just as a junior partner, but as a gatekeeper of critical technology inputs. This leverage could shape future talks on auto rules of origin, EV mandates, and even defense procurement, where secure mineral supply is now considered a matter of national security.
The United States faces a basic problem. It has growing demand for cobalt in electric vehicles and defense systems, yet it has no large domestic refining capacity. China continues to dominate the market, and Washington has made clear it wants alternatives. By 2027, when Electra expects to begin production, American automakers and defense contractors are likely to look north to secure supply. Canada cannot cover all of U.S. demand, but this refinery can provide a reliable North American source that reduces exposure to Beijing. That creates a new dynamic. For once, Canada holds a card that Washington needs. Tariffs and trade disputes may strain the relationship, but cobalt has the power to reset it. The energy transition in the United States will not be built only on Detroit assembly lines. It will also depend on a refinery in Northern Ontario, funded in part by a provincial pledge that may change the balance of supply chains across the continent.
Canada has a lot of cards. We have a lot of resources and a lot of trading opportunities that the Americans are very interested in.
While the Prime Minister said before leaving he wants to deepen connections with our allies here in Europe.
The trade clash between Washington and Ottawa has been unfolding for months. In February, after the White House launched emergency tariffs, Canada hit back with broad countermeasures on a wide range of U.S. goods. Earlier this month, President Donald Trump raised tariffs on Canadian non-CUSMA goods to 35%. Instead of escalating further, Ottawa made a calculated shift. Starting September 1st, counter tariffs will be removed on CUSMA-compliant goods, while steel, aluminum, and autos remain protected. This move is not retreat, it is a reset, aligning Canada with the trade rules while keeping pressure on the sectors where its leverage is strongest. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc called it proof that Canada still has many cards in hand. Electricity may seem invisible, but the numbers tell the story. In 2024, Canada exported nearly 35.7 terawatt-hours of electricity to the United States, worth about 3.1 billion Canadian dollars, according to the Canada Energy Regulator. Imports from the U.S. in the same year were smaller, about 20.9 terawatt-hours. That made Canada a clear net supplier of power across the border. Those flows are not just about dollars. They power close to 1 million American homes, concentrated in northern states where Canadian hydro is often the cheapest and cleanest option. And this comes at a time when U.S. electricity demand is projected to soar. Dominion Energy, which manages part of the grid in the Mid-Atlantic, has forecast that power demand could double over the next 15 years, largely because of data centers and artificial intelligence infrastructure. In this context, the stability of cross-border electricity links becomes even more critical. Electricity is not like oil that can be stored in barrels. It must be transmitted in real time. That means American utilities depend on Canadian reliability every single day. No tariff can change that physics. For Trump, tariffs are a tool of pressure, but in the realm of electricity, Canada holds the steady hand on the switch.
Meeting the German Chancellor is just one of a number of sit-downs planned between Prime Minister Mark Carney and leaders in Germany, Poland, and Latvia. As the trade war with the United States continues, Carney has been focused on diversifying trade, especially with Europe.
Alongside power lines, there is another sector where Canada's leverage runs deep: critical minerals. Canada supplied about 27% of U.S. uranium imports in 2023, based on U.S. Energy Information Administration data. At the same time, the U.S. cut off imports from Russia, making Canadian uranium even more indispensable for American nuclear power plants. The story does not stop at uranium. Canada is also a major producer of nickel, cobalt, and potash, all essential for electric vehicles, batteries, and agriculture. For Washington, the concern is clear. Much of the world's processing of these minerals remains in China, and reducing that dependency has been a bipartisan priority. Canada's reserves, developed under stable political conditions, are a rare alternative. Prime Minister Mark Carney's trip to Europe this week carried this message across the Atlantic. Meetings with German and Polish leaders, along with major CEOs, focused heavily on energy and minerals. Carney's pitch was straightforward. Canada is not only North America's secure supplier, it can also be Europe's. If Ottawa succeeds in building those ties, Washington risks losing the comfort of being Canada's primary customer. Trump's tariffs were meant to corner Canada, but they may end up accelerating Canada's diversification. Trump's tariffs were designed to tighten the screws, but Canada has turned them into an opportunity. By easing pressure on goods that follow CUSMA rules, Ottawa has shown fairness while keeping firm on the sectors where U.S. dependence runs deep. Electricity and minerals cannot be swapped overnight, and they give Canada a quiet but powerful hand. At the same time, Prime Minister Carney is building trade bridges with Europe, reminding Washington that Canada has options. The outcome is clear. Tariffs have not weakened Ottawa. They have highlighted strengths that Trump cannot undercut, leaving Canada better prepared for the talks ahead.
Energy prices are climbing more than twice as fast as inflation as the impacts of Trump administration policies begin to take effect.
Across the United States, energy prices are climbing at a pace households cannot ignore. The Consumer Price Index rose by 2.7% over the past 12 months, but energy bills jumped more than 5.5%. Nearly 60 utility companies are preparing to raise rates in 2025, adding more than $38 billion for electricity customers and another $3.5 billion for natural gas users. Demand for power is surging faster than at any point in decades.
We have never seen a demand for energy at this level for decades, and a lot of that is driven by data centers, artificial intelligence, electric cars, the way we're electrifying our lives. We're requiring more power now than we ever have for decades.
Data centers for artificial intelligence, the spread of electric vehicles, and the electrification of daily life are putting immense pressure on an aging grid. At the very moment when President Donald Trump is calling for manufacturing to return to American soil, the foundation of that vision, cheap and reliable energy, is under strain. Recently, Trump held a call with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Ottawa described it as a wide-ranging conversation on trade and economic priorities. The call raises a larger question. If America wants to bring production back home, and if energy is the missing piece, was Trump reaching out to Canada because he knows that Carney holds much of what he needs? Trump has built his second term around tariffs as a lever to force companies back to U.S. soil. This month, he announced a 100% tariff on imported semiconductors, with exemptions only for firms that commit to manufacturing inside the United States. The goal is clear. By raising the cost of imports, Washington hopes to push supply chains to relocate. This strategy does not stop with technology. Tariffs on steel and aluminum remain at 50%. Imports of transformers and electrical equipment essential for the grid are also caught. The administration wants to tilt the playing field toward domestic production, but the unintended consequence is rising costs for the very infrastructure needed to power Trump's vision. Coal plants are being kept open longer, and proposals for new gas plants have been revived. Yet building a plant takes years, and turbine costs have tripled. Coal is still more expensive than natural gas or renewables. Regulators warn that extending the life of coal plants will add costs that utilities pass on to customers. The paradox is clear. Tariffs may bring factories back, but they also risk driving energy bills higher.
My government fully recognizes that to build Canada into an energy superpower will make Canada the global supplier of choice for critical metals and minerals, diversifying our trading partners and increasing our strategic leverage with the United States.
While the United States struggles with higher costs, Canada holds almost everything Trump needs to realize his ambition. Prime Minister Mark Carney has outlined a plan to build Canada into an energy superpower. His government is investing in critical minerals and clean power generation. British Columbia alone hosts 16 types of critical minerals used in solar panels, electric vehicles, and semiconductors. Ottawa is funding infrastructure to connect resources from mine to rail to market, aiming to become the supplier of choice outside China and Russia. At the same time, Canada is scaling up solar, wind, hydrogen, and nuclear energy, while promising to make its conventional oil and gas the lowest emission in the world. Canada already supplies over 4 million barrels of oil per day, more than 8 billion cubic feet of natural gas daily, and more than 80% of U.S. electricity imports. It also provides about a quarter of the uranium-fueling U.S. nuclear plants. These are not marginal figures. They are the backbone of North America's energy system. That is why the recent phone call between Trump and Carney deserves attention. Ottawa described it as a productive discussion on trade and economic priorities. The White House offered no public details. But the timing speaks for itself. As American demand for electricity accelerates and as tariffs raise the cost of building energy infrastructure, Canada stands out as the only reliable partner with the scale to fill the gap. The trajectory is clear. Trump's tariffs may generate headlines and political momentum, yet they carry a price that American consumers are already beginning to pay. Canada, by contrast, is strengthening its position as a strategic energy power. No matter how ambitious the effort to bring manufacturing back to America, it cannot succeed without energy. And in North America, much of that energy runs through Canada.